KTN News. Get the whole story.
A very good morning to you. Welcome. You're watching Morning Express. As always, it's a pleasure to have you with us on this very last day of May. Welcome to the broadcast. My name is Jesse Rogers. Of course, a lot of focus in the Luo Nyanza region ahead of the Madaraka Day celebrations that are set to happen tomorrow. President Uhuru Kenyatta and his handshake partner Raila Odinga, of course, making headlines following the opening of various development projects in the region just yesterday. More is expected today. We'll definitely get to discuss that in totality. Taking a look at the state of the handshake and how much actually is in focus, bearing in mind the president and the handshake partner are set to lead the country in the Madaraka Day celebrations tomorrow. Of course, allies of Deputy President William Ruto sort of feeling left out one way or the other in terms of the preparations. It has been covered extensively in today's dailies, and we'll also get to have a livid conversation centered on the expectations and the reality, of course, as we get to celebrate Madaraka Day celebrations tomorrow. Before we talk about that and what has been covered on the dailies, allow us to take a look at what is transpiring internationally. Let's begin closer home, specifically in Uganda with the Daily Monitor. Let's take a look at some of the stories covered there. Inside the speaker race and bitter fallout between NUP and FDC party. That's the National Resistance Movement. Developments happening within the political parties right there, even as Museveni got stuck into flights for jobs deals at Uganda Airlines. Sources say the airline has been immersed in fights over jobs, money, and multi-million procurement deals involving media and publicity services. Interesting developments there. COVID-19 again shuts out pilgrims from Namugongo. Of course, Uganda experiencing a surge. I think it's the second wave right there. So interesting developments happening health-wise as well. Let's cross over to the Citizen. The latest from Tanzania. Passenger alert. How safe is that ride? They're known for sorting transport complications, but a recent string of violence faced by women passengers is posing fresh security concerns in using this ride-hailing services in Tanzania. Of course, make sure you're adequately informed about that. It might affect you one way or the other. Pharmacies on the spot for selling P2 and abortion pills, where the government in Tanzania has said it will start conducting inspection at key pharmacies, and those found selling emergency contraceptive pills will of course be held culpable. President Samia makes changes of regional administrative secretaries. That's the latest in terms of governance and administration, even as President Mwinyi says no one will be forced to take the COVID vaccine. That's the Zanzibar president who mentioned that no one will be forced to take that vaccine against their wish. Over to Rwanda today. Let's take a look at what's transpiring there. Farmers raise concerns over high cost of animal feed. Animal farmers raising those concerns due to limited access of raw materials locally due to the high cost. Developments happening in the agricultural field, even as there's a cut in supply of consumer goods, which has sparked high prices, where Rwandans have raised alarm over the increase in price of basic home groceries, including cooking oil as well. Bread and soap have also been affected. Irrigation schemes fail farmers, the latest in terms of agriculture, even as Rwanda resumes nationwide vaccination, where it received additional doses from the COVAX facility and a donation from France as well. Over to the East African. Let's take a look at what's happening in the region. Of course, tomorrow we expect the Burundian president Ndayishimiye to visit Kenya ahead of the Madaraka Day celebrations. various talks set to be held in terms of the bilateral ties between the two countries. Well, of course, we mentioned this. Rwanda has resumed its COVID-19 vaccine jabs after receiving a donation from France and also receiving doses rather from the COVAX facility. Tanzania to get $140 million loan for the hydropower project. That's the latest in terms of the developments happening in the East Africa region. Make sure you transfer some of the articles right here to be adequately informed. Over to CNN World News. Let's take a look at what's making headlines. At least 88 politicians have been killed in Mexico since September. Talk of a state of lawlessness, one or the other, where the cartel, of course, is definitely giving the government a run for its money, one or the other. More details right there, even as Biden says he will bring up human rights abuses with Putin during the meeting between these two world leaders. Of course, Biden has definitely called out Putin in some instances. And let's see how it develops, bearing in mind the bilateral relations between those two countries. More has obviously been covered on this particular page, from Europe, Middle East, all the way to Africa. 92 earthquakes and tremors recorded in the past 24 hours around Mount Nyiragongo volcano. Of course, a lot happening in the DRC, specifically Goma, that particular town where individuals, even as of late as Friday, had to be evacuated due to that particular eruption that might happen yet again. Of course, that's the latest happening on the international scene. Allow us to cross over to the local stories right now. And of course, a lot has been covered on the handshake goodies for the Luo Nyanza region. Going with the front page of the Standard, Kenya's bold newspaper, they mention a show of might as President Uhuru's tour starts. And the handshake goodies, where President Kenyatta landed in Kisumu, accompanied by more than 15 cabinet and principal secretaries, to launch projects in the region ahead of the Madaraka Day celebrations in the city tomorrow. Of course, we'll get to talk extensively about that later on, even as the Daily Nation has also gone big with the handshake politics and the bag of goodies expected as well. Handshake anti-climax, that is the front page of the Daily Nation, where amidst symbolic train ride by President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga from Nakuru to Kisumu, and incomplete development projects and a dark cloud of the COVID-19 pandemic dampen the mood ahead of the Madaraka Day activities, even as they mention the disquiet in Ruto's camp as the Madaraka Day feat has been hijacked, quote unquote. Of course, we expect Deputy President to attend the feat, but he will not participate in the launch of projects in the region. That's according to his office. Some of his allies say the DP has been sidelined in preparations of the Madaraka Day celebrations. We'll get to talk extensively about that. Allow me to introduce the panelists joining us in studio. I'm joined by three gentlemen, of course, familiar faces. I'll start with Dr. Njogu Barua, who is the former Gishugu Member of Parliament. Good morning and many thanks for your time.
Good morning, Jesse. Thank you for having me.
Okay, we're also joined by Arthur Odera, who is the former Teso North Member of Parliament. It's always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Jesse. Pleasure as usual.
Okay, good morning. And we're also joined by Joseph Kioko, who is a political analyst. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Good morning.
Morning, Jesse. Thank you for having us here.
Okay, of course, we'll get to talk a lot more about Luo Nyanza. As you can see, the papers are going big with that. But let's start with something that was of a somber note, a somber mood just yesterday, as Kenyans got to know that the former Member of Parliament of Kibwezi, Kalembe Ndile, has actually passed on. He was the Independent Party leader, better known as Tip Tip. And we well know of the work he did for those he represented during his time in Parliament as of 2002. Gentlemen, I'd like to begin on that particular note. Dr. Njogu, how well do you remember the late Kalembe Ndile?
I remember late Kalembe Ndile through his actions, political actions, not much through personal interactions. But I know he was a founder member and a party leader of a political party called the Independent Party, which is Tip Tip. I know he's a man who has come from humble background, from a son of a squatter, from a tout, all the way to become a member of parliament and becoming an assistant minister. I know him that he was a vocal advocate for the underprivileged. He used to be actually advocating for the low class members of society, people with poor income, low income. I also know him by the fact that he's a man who is being mourned very seriously, by even some people betrayed him. Because I remember one day when he was serving as assistant minister, he was beaten thoroughly in Kitui just because he spoke in support of the government of the day. And today, the biggest people who are actually claiming that he was a hero are the same people who orchestrated that humiliating action on that day. The other thing is that having dissolved his party to join Jubilee, he died a frustrated man because I don't think he got the benefits of which he expected to by dissolving his party to be part of the larger Jubilee. So I think, in my view, I met him a few times, and we had chats and drinks, and I think he was a gentleman, an open man, a person who spoke his mind. And I think what you can maybe learn from him is that act of humility, and also put ourselves to notice that it is good for us to celebrate people when they are alive, as opposed to just celebrating him or people when they pass on.
Okay.
So that's how I remember him. And the position he was holding as a board member of Tanathi, to me it was not commensurate with his position as a former party leader of a party. So I think what I would like to say in a nutshell is that we need to have honesty at the political platform so that we can have a government running smoothly, a government can be trusted by everybody. So I induct Kenyans, especially the leaders, who betray others once they get power.
Well, interesting. One hour squatter, as others knew him, perhaps those closer. Arthur Odera, I don't know if you got a chance to serve with him in Parliament, but if not, we well know of how he has been eulogized by various leaders, President Uhuru Kenyatta, Deputy President William Ruto, among those who reacted following his demise. But a fearless land rights activist, most people seem to mention this. He seemed to do a lot for the people of Kibwezi during his time as Member of Parliament. How do you remember him?
Jesse, today I would like to mourn two individuals. The first one, of course, is Kalembe Ndile, former MP for Kibwezi, a fearless advocate of the rights of the downtrodden. He never feared power, he never feared adversity, and he spoke out consistently over his political life for the rights of people who ordinarily would be denied their rights. And he made many friends as much as he made enemies in different places. And he will be remembered as a man who was not afraid to talk about his past, but was courageously trying to craft what his future will be. I'm sure he'll be remembered across Kenya. He is one of those leaders who he created a profile of himself that cuts across ethnic lines, religious lines. He is just an advocate of the poor. And I think that one of the things that marked Kalembe out is his bravery, his ability. He had a nose for where the problem is, and he would always speak out without caring where it was. The second person I mourn is a legendary Teso musician and cultural educator called Obasie Palinyang, who we buried on Saturday. A man who has lived his life entertaining and educating people. He left many friends and many fans like myself behind. May their souls rest in peace.
Okay, well noted. Over to you, Kyoko. I mean, I'm just looking at the paper. Of course, on page 8, that's where we know of the life Kalembe Mwana wa Scott Ndile actually lived. And it's interesting, part of the article mentions that he never shied away from mentioning he had D's in exams, but that didn't stop him in one or the other. And of course, interestingly, they've mentioned how he used the campaign strategy of domesticating elephants to make his way into parliament, something that did not happen, of course, on a light note.
Thank you, Jesse. I mean, let me join all Kenyans of goodwill in passing our sincere condolences to the family of Kalembe Ndile, the late, to the people of Kibwezi, the people of Mbuinzao, and to all Kenyans who had the opportunity to interact with Mheshimiwa Kalembe Ndile. He was a political maverick. His education notwithstanding. And you know, you need to, when you look at his life, you need to ask yourself, how many people were in parliament the period of 2002 to 2007 who lost their parliamentary seats and still maintain an active political life and political relevance to date. He is amongst a caliber of very few people who are able to still maintain that maverickness and to be there consistently. His movement to create the party of Tipti, people thought it was a joke, but he used that to negotiate and leverage himself within the political arena. The quick knack of knowing political wind is changing, aligning himself with the true political actors, never being shy of contradicting the Kamba political supremo Kalonzo Musyoka, and then you still find he's again appearing with Kalonzo Musyoka. So he was maverick, and you must give that to him. And he taught us many things, that education does not define who you are. Yes, education is good, but it is the attitude you adapt in life that will take you further in how you relate with people. So he never shied to say he had this, but again, you'd notice when he was the chairman of the county council of Makueni, he got involved in very many paralegal activities, training to understand the then Katiba and why it needed to be changed. At that time, he was being taught by Professor Kibwana. The move to get squatters then in Kibwezi to be resettled was based about his understanding of the Land Acts, yet he had these, his understanding of the need to settle squatters. So he taught us that attitude is what was more important in life. And that's why you find in every political cycle, his attitude was always cut above the rest. You'd find him where it really mattered. So for all of us who remained behind, and he was only 57, really, just trying to pick up in his life, is to learn from him that where we start is not necessarily where we end, but our attitude defines a lot of our activity.
Okay.
May his soul truly rest in eternal peace.
Okay,
Go well, our friend.
Well noted. We'll definitely continue bringing you up to speed even as preparations around his burial continue. More details on page 3 of the Daily Nation as well as page 8 of the Standard. Let's cross over to something that occurred over the weekend. Dr. Njogu Muturi's coronation definitely happened earlier on, but this weekend we saw Kiraitu Murungi, the governor of Meru County, sort of have a homecoming after his battle with COVID-19, successful battle with COVID-19. And of course, the political cyclone around regional supremacy continues. Even as I quote some of the words by Kiraitu Murungi, he said, "Go and tell them," meaning those leaders from the other region, Mount Kenya West, that we are ready to chart a new path. And of course, there might be talk of a new mbas, as it was commonly mentioned, that will be used by these leaders to sort of agitate their needs. Well, what say you about this and the sights we saw during the homecoming?
I think what I would like to say about Muturi effect in the Mount Kenya region politics is that for real, it is starting to surface. Whichever you look at it, you can't talk about Mount Kenya politics now without mentioning of Muturi as one of the actors. The other thing I would like to remind Kenyans is that Muturi, as he is today, he is number 3 in the hierarchy of this nation. So naturally, when you are building a career, from whichever profession, even politics, you aspire to the next higher position. So being number 3, it is logical for Muturi to aspire for becoming a deputy president and also, if possible, become the president. The other issue is that Mount Kenya is in a bit of, is in a shaky situation by the fact that the president, who is from the region, is not going to be vying again as a president because he has exhausted his 2 terms, which are prescribed in the constitution. And also, due to the dynamics of the last 2 general elections, leaders have been voted in, voted out, and you have got very few leaders from the region who have served more than 1 term. And that's what I mean by serving more than 1 term is that there are very few leaders who have entrenched themselves to become like senior leaders in the Mount Kenya region. Okay. So that is why people are fighting for. The other thing is, that's what people are fighting for. The other thing is that the governors, who are current governors today, they have a sense of entitlement. They have the leadership, they think that they are the leaders of the region. But me, I'm of a different opinion. Yes, they have their following, but they don't command a majority following given what has been happening in the last 4 years after the handshake. The ground has shifted, and most people are not behind them. But they still want to claim that space. And that is what they are fighting for. So when somebody like Muturi comes up and defines himself, he becomes a threat to the current leadership of the region. So what I would like to say is that you're going to see much of this. A few days ago, we are talking about Mount Kenya not having a presidential candidate. I hear that Mwangi wa Iria has offered himself to be a presidential candidate come 2022, which another dynamic. And because they are trying to get another center of power, another political movement which they can use to assent or retain the power they have. Because Jubilee as it is now in Mount Kenya, and I say this with a lot of authority from the ground, it is not popular. It is like a party in the ICU. The other dimension of Muturi is that Muturi has been pro-system, and the ground in Mount Kenya had gradually shifted to the deputy president. And I think the people who are the deep state and the system may be in support of Muturi, because Muturi can be able to divide and remind Mount Kenya people that they are not just Mount Kenya. There is Mount Kenya East and Mount Kenya West. They are also being reminded that Mount Kenya West, which starts from Nyeri all the way to Nyandarua, and Mount Kenya East, which starts from Embu all the way to Meru, they are 2 different blocks. Okay. And you can see that I've left Kirinyaga out, because Kirinyaga is an interface. We are neither in the east nor in the west. We are also going to chart our own way forward. So now what is happening is that for Muturi getting support from Mount Kenya East, it is possible that no candidate will get a block vote for Mount Kenya as a whole. And that's a way of trying to stop Deputy President from getting a block vote for Mount Kenya. Okay. So he could be there to maybe build his own career. Number 2, he could be there to get a sizable number of constituencies which he can use to negotiate his future, or he could be there serving another interest to divide the region. That's the way it is, and we have to take it. Just remember that what I commented last week on this forum, I did not talk about the merits and merits of Muturi as a person. Yeah. What I commended for, and the fact is, and what is a fact today, is that the process of coronation was not properly done, because there was no consultation, and those elders who are there, most of them were contractual. They are not the proper elders of the region. I am the patron of the elders in the Gesho constituency. None of them was there. So we don't belong to that kingdom. All right. And Muturi has to work his way out to get himself acceptability in the region. Finally, I would like to say that, I want to repeat again, the biggest handle Muturi is having is that he has not used his position well as a number 3 in this government to entice himself to the mountain people. He's just coming up after 8 years, reminding people he has been the speaker, which has been, and he deserves whatever he was. He could have done much more within the 8 years. Now, if he wants to run for president, the question I'm asking, is he going to resign as speaker, or is he going to double as a speaker, as at the same time, he is claiming his position as the king of the area and vying for the president? He has to choose one.
Okay. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
We ran a story questioning the elders, and we had a tag elderpreneurs, the role these elders play in politics. You mentioned there was no widespread consultation. What exactly is the process in case I want to be coronated as an elder? How exactly should you, what process should you follow?
Number one, before you get there, I want to say that I listened to Captain Kogo recently, and it was very clear that they made Muturi the spokesman of the elders, not the spokesman of the community.
True.
The elders is a club, and they have their right to have their own spokesman, because really that's their club because of their status in life. In terms of coronation, coronations are not done in churches, and they are not done in shrines. Going to coronate somebody in a shrine is a big mistake. The other thing is, we have organized elders in this community, especially the Kikuyu. We have the Kikuyu Council of Elders, which I can authoritatively say that the chairman of the Kikuyu Council of Elders, my friend Wachira Wakiago, and the Secretary General, Reverend Peter Munga, who are actually the leaders of that organization, were not involved in that process, did not participate, and neither of their members participated there. We have another organization which works parallel or side by side with the Kikuyu Council of Elders, which is called Kiama Kiama, which was also not present in that coronation. So what I'm saying is that it is difficult for us to agree that Muturi has been coronated as the Speaker of Mount Kenya people, because the representation was poor. What could have happened is this. In Mount Kenya, we have got the Kikuyu, we have got the Bere, we have got the Embus, and we have got the Merus. The best way to coronate him would have been to get elders, authentic elders, not entrepreneurs, authentic elders from each of those communities, and congregate in a stadium whereby they can coronate, they could have coronated him.
So that wasn't the case.
That could have been acceptable.
Okay.
But right now, it is like a few people who chose to coronate him because they want to divide the attention of what is happening politically in the region. And also, unfortunately, you see, Jesse, as a Kikuyu, I know when you are performing Kikuyu sacred activities, we don't photograph. Those are supposed to be secrets. So this coronation was done in the full media with a lot of police security. I don't know what they are fearing. So that police security is making us question, what was Muturi fearing among the people he wants to lead?
Interesting. Let me bring in Kyoko into this, because on page 6 and 7 of the Standard, they're questioning what this tug of war will actually do in terms of altering the character of politics in the mountain region. The term voting as a bloc is usually going hand in hand with politics in Mount Kenya. But also answer this next to this particular question. Where does this leave the allies of the Tanga Tanga movement, especially in the mountain?
Well, I think this conversation about coronation is a statement majorly accepting that there is a leadership vacuum in the region. That's the first thing. And when that vacuum occurred, everybody did, I think the majority of leadership within Central Province, or the majority of leadership that is in favor with President Uhuru, ignored it for a while. So it has kept growing. And you know, power abhors vacuum. So people moved and started engaging. People came out and were able to occupy that space legitimately. So that is why you hear Moses Kuria and his people empowerment thing winning a seat in Juja, moving forward. That's why you see UDA and Deputy President coming in and propping up very many people so that that vacuum created does not exist. Now, when the speaker comes in, he is coming in a little bit too late once because formations have occurred. People's aspirations have seen, and is coming in as a spiked leader. He is being brought in from the top, coming to address, to lord over people. And that approach is what I believe Central Province has a problem with. If he was growing organically, having utilized the space as the speaker to have endeared himself to the people of Central Province, to the young people, to the farmers, and to the different causes and interests within Central Province, then this would have been a very natural progression of event. But again, he sat down, he let 8 years lapse, he is coming in at the tail end, and people can see through it. Now, one of the challenges within Central Province is to accept that in the last, after the exit of President Kibaki, Uhuru moved in and took over leadership of that region politically. It is now then you start asking yourself, is Uhuru leaving the scene to Muturi? Has Uhuru sanctioned whatever has happened? And because of his cousin, Captain Kungu, then you find that this is a tacit approval from the Uhuru, the president, that in Central Province, I leave you in the favorable hands of Speaker. But again, does Uhuru contain such influence in Central Province given the current political events? Has his influence remained intact over the last 8 years? I do not think so. His influence has kept waning politically, and anything Uhuru touches, and that's a feeling that will be contestable over the upcoming period, but everything that is associated with Uhuru somehow is backfiring within Central. There's a revolt against the king. And when you come associated with the king, you also suffer negative repercussions because of the king. Now, other people, you see what Kiraitu is trying to do, this division of east and west of Mount Kenya. In truthfulness, for the longest period that we've been in this political arena, from 1992, we never used to see Central Province or Mount Kenya region with that lens. These are conflicts within themselves that are being allowed to come out and at the national level. Incidentally, I do not think at the political level, at the political persuasion level, that intra-division will matter a lot. The youth in Kirinyaga, the youth in Meru, the youth in Murang'a, the youth in Kiambu, the youth in Nyahururu have similar aspirations. And this subdivision, dichotomy of saying, because I'm from Murang'a or Kirinyaga, therefore, it doesn't augur well with the young people. It doesn't augur well with the ordinary people in Central Province. That is why I think this division is not adding value. This division is a tad little too late to influence the voting direction within Central Province.
Well, let's see if divide and conquer will apply in this case. Of course, a lot more details covered on The Standard. Make sure you grab yourself a copy to be adequately informed about what transpired during that particular homecoming in Nkobo. Allow us to take a short break. When we come back, we'll continue with the dailies. Of course, most stories have been covered and will definitely bring you up to speed with the news-making headlines. Stay with us.
This is KTN News.
Salad vegetable cooking oil is the clear-flowing secret to tasty meals. Buy 5 liters of Salad vegetable cooking oil today and get 250 grams of Zesta tomato sauce for free. Iflo Kama Salad. Salad vegetable cooking oil available in all cooking outlets countrywide.
Introducing the new salad oil with a spout for easy use. Comes packed with omega-6 and 9 and vitamin A and D, and at a price that doesn't dent your wallet.
Leo utakula nyumbani.
Salad, siri ndio hiyo.
in your Nairobian newspaper. Read about the late Ayimba, Kenya's rugby legend's love for the game and his fights off the pitch. Busting the myth of mature women and desperate for sex and would go for anything with 3 legs. Woman in court charged with beating up her husband's ex-wife. Also, find out why women's panties are always found in changa dens after police raids. For these and many more stories, grab a copy of your favorite newspaper, The Nairobian, or get a copy of the new e-paper on epaper.standardmedia.co.ke at 10 bob and make your week an interesting one. The Nairobian. We know where you live.
BBC Money Daily is back. Your bite-sized snapshot of what's hot in business and beyond. While the African economy has been down, it definitely hasn't been out and is slowly getting back on its feet. We are here to give you the very latest, showing you how businesses across the continent have managed to keep the wheels of commerce turning, even in crisis. We will feature the continent's brightest experts to help you and your business go from surviving to thriving. Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. See you then.
Farmer digging up for anything other than your crops should be the last thing on your mind, at least with us around. Making you a successful farmer is what inspires us. At Farm Kenya, we give you the best we can by separating the wheat from the chaff, by ensuring that you harvest every bag of produce you've invested in. With only 2 shillings per SMS, you can now get access to weather alerts, the latest information on pests and diseases, agricultural events around you alongside agricultural and marketing tips. To subscribe, all you have to do is send the word FARM to 22840. Because at Farm Kenya, we believe in being Kenya's reliable source of agricultural content for your growth.
This is KTN News.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Express. As always, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Just reintroducing my panelists in case you're just joining us. I'm joined by Dr. Njogu Barua, who is a former Gishugu Member of Parliament. In studio, I'm also joined by Arthur Odera, the former Teso North Member of Parliament, and of course, Joseph Kioko, political analyst. Gentlemen, let's continue with the discussion. Of course, taking a look at some of the stories covered in the dailies. Arthur Odera, I don't know if elders have a role to play in the political landscape in your community. Perhaps add your thought to what we're witnessing transpiring in Mount Kenya.
Jesse, the history of elders in Kenya has been checkered. I think, in the past, elders in most communities have played a very important role. If you take elders to be a bastion of knowledge and experience and wisdom, it's difficult to argue that they shouldn't play a role. However, the entrepreneurial side of the elders in many communities and their ability to be swayed and bought and to take sides, you would love a council of elders that regards all the contestants, all the candidates as their sons and daughters, treats them accordingly, gives each one of them space to grow as they may and supports them with wisdom over time. If you get a situation where there is controversy in a community, elders can easily come in and use their wisdom to create harmony. It helps to keep the voice of the community alive if the elders take their role seriously and follow the path of wisdom. And it's not the first time we are hearing controversy around which ones are the authentic elders and which ones are not. Sure. I remember there's a big one in the Luo community where at some point there were actually 2 chairpersons of elders leading different factions, and you could take that to make it. I remember there was a controversy in the Kaya as well in Mombasa, this Kaya and that Kaya, which one is more powerful, which one should call the shots. So it's not a strange thing at all, but modern times pose modern challenges, and sometimes the elderpreneur thing is real in some cases, but to think that, for me, if you go back to Speaker Muturi, to think that actually a set of elders did go ahead. Remember that when he came to Murang'a to be crowned, he had already been crowned by the Njuri Ncheke. And there was no argument about authenticity and so on. East, if we were to take that, naming, East had already crowned him. Now he was coming to be crowned by West, which West was supposed to represent now the totality of Mount Kenya. Okay. Clearly, there's a big debate on whether that was authentic or not, whether it should have happened, but I think part of the reason there's controversy is because we are in a highly charged political environment. It is not an innocent act that you can take for just being a cultural thing. It would obviously generate more controversy, less controversy. But in my view, I see that debate going more to a question of then what between East and West? Okay. Who is our leader? How do we make sure that we get a good leader between East and East? From the utterances of Governor Kiraitu, even before this homecoming, he is supportive. Governor Mudhomi is supportive. Governor Wambora is supportive, and a lot of East is supportive. I listened to Professor Naituli being very, very assertive about it. Correct. You get the sense that East is actually thinking, it's our turn. If that is the case, my hunch is that the West will feel that we do need to reach out to our brothers in the East. We need to maintain the unity, because if you see Mount Kenya East, if you take the Mount Kenya in totality in terms of ethnicity rather than region, the Mount Kenya as it exists as a region and the diaspora, East is more than 20%, actually 25% of what we regard as Mount Kenya. That is a good chunk of Mount Kenya. If East begins to feel differently, then you need leaders who will begin to reach out to East and reach out to West. Even for Speaker Muturi, if he really wants to be a leader worth his salt, I am sure he will see Mount Kenya as an opportunity rather than just East. If that divide between East and West widens, it also reduces his chances of looking like a leader who can have a stake at the national level. So I believe that, as in many other communities, the elders will come in with their wisdom in Mount Kenya and try to unite what we are now seeing as East and West, to unite the different factions of elders that may be going in different directions. Okay. But there's a big question hanging. Whose man is Speaker Muturi? And I think Kioko alluded to that in some sort of roundabout way. Yeah. If we manage to, there are several conspiracy theories, by the way. If we manage to unravel that, I think most players will sit back and say, okay, do I work with him? Does it make sense to work with him? Or do I not work with him because he is against what I desire in terms of national leadership?
Okay, Daktari, briefly as we conclude.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that you look at the way to look at Muturi's coronation, it is really political. Because you look at Kiraito and Munya, they are in opposite sides of the divide because they are rivals in the ground. Yeah. So Munya is actually not supporting the enthronement of Muturi. Munya was also not happy with what happened in Njuri shrines because he thought that he should be the one who should be crowned instead, being a senior cabinet minister. Okay. That's the way it is. The other issue I want to say is that because of the disquiet and political division which have occurred in Mount Kenya, it is going to be most unlikely that President Uhuru Kenyatta will be able to anoint a successor. This time, the successor, if it's going to be there, is going to come organically from the people, but it's not possible for him to come and dictate to people and tell them, this is the man or the woman I've left you to be in charge of this region.
All right.
The other thing is that in terms of Mount Kenya, there is a feeling that, which is existing, that the people of the East have not benefited from the national cake all the way from independent to now. And the larger people of the larger Kikuyu counties have largely benefited from that.
Okay.
So the time for the Mount Kenya East has come to say, now this is our time, we are brothers, we have supported you for this long. Now we want to show you a genuineness by supporting us.
Okay.
If you look at a county like Kirinyaga, where I come from, we are not categorized as Kikuyus or as Embus. We are actually a transition in terms of language county. And in fact, when you talk to people like our brothers from Nyeri and Murang'a, sometimes they even don't understand. We cannot communicate very fully. If I talk in my full Gishogo language, they may not understand. And we have felt marginalized, and that feeling is going across Embu, is going across Bere, and is going to Meru and so forth. And it may create another rift between the region. Yes, I support Arthur Ondera. If Muturi wants to benefit from Mount Kenya, he should not support those divisions. He should be able to portray himself as a senior statesman, the bigger of the boys, and accommodate East and West and put it together.
Okay, and unite them. Let's see how it all plays out. Of course, it's just starting. It's a charged political environment. Speaking of a charged political environment, Arthur Odera, I'd like your take on this particular talking point. According to the dailies today on page 4, there's a vicious row in Ruto's camp, which is intensifying between the parties. And they're borrowing note from PEP, which announced it will be facing off with its sister party, UDA, in any forthcoming by-election and next year's polls. Of course, just recently, we had their withdrawing their candidate in the Kiambaa by-election, but this has been followed by this particular move in terms of sibling rivalry. Do you read too much into it?
We read just enough, Jesse. We read just enough, and we are not surprised. It is something that is perfectly normal to occur in a situation where there are different individuals representing different interests, having their own personal interests as well, who are hoping to take power. And there is a history to this. I mean, if you look at especially the Kibaki presidency, when there was LDP, there was NAC, and several other interested parties, these guys fought for power, they sacrificed for power, and they wrested power from the Moi regime. After they took power as a team, it was deemed that there was a lot of betrayal thereafter because of expectations, because of interests, because everybody comes to the table with an expectation that they will get something out of it. So for me, in a political contest where there are different people who feel they are making a contribution and they're expecting something in return, it is a contest for what happens to me after we win. And for me, it's about, look at the players, Moses Kuria, Rigathi Gachagua, and there will be many other silent ones who are playing an important role without necessarily being on the mic all the time. There will be battles, and I think at the end of the day, if he has not, the deputy president will need to be sitting down with each of these individuals and reassuring them and telling them their stake should he become president. Even after he has done that, there will still be a feeling that he got more than I did, so-and-so got what I wanted. There will be those who feel I got less. There will be those who feel my region is not well catered for. There will be those who feel I'm not being listened to. So because it's open season, I would expect that there are people who feel that because I've not gotten what I wanted to negotiate for and to get, I will move elsewhere where I can get a better deal. And transfer season is essentially like that. And in politics, as in football, for example, people can move freely without consequences of being, for example, ostracized just because he has moved camp from one camp to another. But politics is about interests. And people will be looking forward to say, will my interests be catered for?
Okay.
Based on an assurance. But then again, you look at the way these people are coming on board. If you take two examples of Rigathi Gachagua and Susan Kihika in Nakuru, and of course also our friend Kimani Ngunjiri, they are coming into UDA and they want to drive the agenda from within UDA. Take other players like who is Moses Kuria, and take Waziri Kiunjuri, who want to come to the table already with their parties, and anybody sitting where the deputy president sits will be thinking, if their parties are strong and they come to the table to negotiate, they will want a bigger stake than the individuals who are negotiating as individuals. And if they don't get that stake, they can take that might of that party to any other person who can give them a better deal. So I think it's a delicate balancing act. It is not possible to avoid differences. There will be differences, no doubt. It doesn't mean that things have gone dramatically wrong. Yeah. It is just a process. You know, they say, when you start a relationship, there's a storming season, there's a norming season, then you move to performing. I think there'll be a lot of storming. The problem with politics is that the storming is very loud. I mean, in other circumstances, people go through the storming session and it's quiet, it's normal. Yes. They take it in their stride. But in political life, and because there's a succession, presidential succession coming, the storming session will be very loud, and it will make you feel like there's more happening than there actually is.
Okay, well, Kyoko, what's your take on this? Do you read that the democratic space might be dwindling, or what say you?
I think first we must not underrate Moses Kuria. He has a very sharp political mind. You need to remember this conversation of Punguza Mzigo. He started it. They did political rounds with the former governor of Nairobi, Sonko, and he has an agenda. I truly believe Moses Kuria, at a personal level, has a bigger agenda than Central Kenya. So when he started his party, People Empowerment, and as a fringe party, he knows where he's going to, as an exit valve, because not everybody will be accommodated in UDA. The nomination process in UDA, just like in any other political party, will be very rough. Now, you create an exit path for those losers, or for those people who feel, why should I subject myself into the UDA nomination, yet I do know that particular seats are reserved for particular people. And politics is more perceptual than reality. No matter how much the SG of UDA comes out and says, no, we shall have fair nominations, people will have that feeling that certain seats are reserved. So you create PEP as an exit valve to reduce tension. However, how to manage this animal, this young party called PEP, going forward, is going to be more problematic to UDA than they are ever envisaging. This by-election of Kiambaa, other than undue pressure being exerted on Moses Kuria, he personally believed that given free opportunity, they would have won that seat. Okay. Moses Kuria would have been a leader with at least 2 MPs in parliament from Juja constituency. Now that's from Kiambu County. That is very good political mileage to have a discussion with any person looking for political seats within Kiambu County. Now it had to be nipped in the bud. The upcoming by-election in Meru of this Untitled Chapter MCA that died over the weekend, and may God rest her soul in peace. That upcoming one, you hear him speak out, we are going to field somebody there. Moses is growing. Now, if you compare PEP with Kiunjuri's TSP party, Service Party, Kiunjuri did a launch and kept quiet. Of course, I'm told there are movements, there are things they are doing that we don't know publicly, but politically they seem to be quiet. They are not engaging in political contest for relevance. So, yes, there are shenanigans happening within UDA, and people imagine that they are going to control them at the final end. But how people grow, how power is acquired, is not by tokenism. It is grabbed. Okay. Moses Kuria will grab this space if not carefully watched, and it might be a headache in the political calculations of UDA going forward. Does it expand political space? Yes, it does. Our political parties are not the very best in terms of organizing internal democracy. If you do not agree with the party leader, people will start saying you've been sent, you are spying for this other party. So internal democracy within our nascent and young political parties is not all that. That is why unions or political entities like PEP will make a lot of differences moving forward.
Okay, Njogu, I know you'll want to add your voice to that, but also kindly factor in the fact that the curfew has been extended for another 60 days. Matiang'i, of course, through the Ministry of Interior Coordination, did this in terms of at least trying to lower the COVID-19 rate and continue containing this particular virus. Do you pick any issues in this?
I think let me start the curfew issue,
Okay.
because I may lose it out. Yesterday, the curfew was extended for another 30 days. 60 days.
Yeah.
It definitely affects some business sectors. Like now, when I was coming to this station, the driver, the Uber driver brought me here, was saying that if the curfew was lifted, they would be able to make more money because the clubs will be giving the businesses. Some people travel at night.
Of course.
So by having this curfew, they are losing opportunities. That's just one sector. The other sectors which are losing. Secondly, the other side of the coin is that there is a talk of a looming curve. That is the fourth wave, which could be coming somewhere in July. It is not something you can wish away, because right now, if you read the papers, there is another strain which has come up in Taiwan, which is a mix, which is a combination of the South African and the Indian and the UK variants, and they are saying that is more lethal, and is even being transmitted through is airborne.
Okay.
So we need to address the issue of COVID-19 as a serious and a priority issue. And where we are now, the responsibility is on citizens and the government at the same time. The citizens are duty-bound to follow the precautionary measure which has been given to stop the rolling, to cause the rolling of the infection rate. The government at the same time should take this opportunity of the 60 days coming to ensure that they increase the vaccination levels, because the vaccination level is one that will make us open the country or not. Because the science tells us that if you vaccinate up to 60%, it is easy for us to, it will be possible for us to open the economy, because when you have got more people infected, the virus would have no host, and they just become a common virus like the common cold and so forth. So I think the curfew is going to affect businesses, some businesses negatively, but it is necessary, because if we get the scenario of India, we may not be able to handle it. That's my take on this.
All right.
When it comes to this issue of politics, what is happening in Kiambu and in, let's say, in central Kenya in terms of by-elections, it is not new. Because this country, the way it is, you look at Raila Odinga, he has never, for the last 2 elections, he has never vied for presidency as ODM. He has vied as a coalition. The last one was, what do you call it, the last one? The first one was...
CORD, NASA.
There was CORD and NASA. So he loops in other political parties with the former coalition because of the reality of the diversity of this nation. So trying to think that you can form a party, maybe formed from, with a base in Ukambani, just as an example, and they expect that political party to be acceptable across the entire nation is a tall order. It may be possible, but it's a tall order. But given the realities we have today, especially the betrayal which has happened between the president and his deputy, this is not going to be a thing to come in the near future. So the issue which Kenyans must understand is that coalitions is the way of the future. So that when you go to an election, you know, I'm coaliting with this political party, and this is what I expect in return. Because parties are there for grabbing power. So we coalesce so that we can have a power sharing arrangement. So what is happening in the by-election in Kiambu is actually not strange, because there's a talk in town within the region that if the region does not, say for example the region is going to work with Deputy President William Ruto, if the region will not have a vehicle through which they can negotiate, they could suffer the same fate as the same fate which is the deputy president suffering today, whereby he has been isolated by his boss to an extent that he is actually becoming like he's under house arrest.
All right.
So the issue is that Moses Kuria